So we're going to begin chapter 2 of Josefina's Surprise. Where's Nina? Josefina closed her eyes and tried to picture Nina. The last time Josefina had seen her, Nina was wearing a pale blue skirt. Her arms and legs were flat because some of her stuffing had fallen out, and her black yarn hair was tangled. Josefina clearly remembered Nina's lively black eyes and smiling pink mouth, and she was pretty sure she remembered a green sash tied around Nina's waist. I'll just keep my eyes sharp for any bit of green or black or pale blue, Josefina thought. Nina has to be somewhere. The first place Josefina looked was in the room she shared with Clara and Francisca. Standing on tiptoe, Josefina ran her hand along all the high shelves built into the walls. She looked in corners, under blankets, and behind the trunk that Clara and Francisca kept their clothes in. No Nina. Josefina opened the trunk to search inside. Clara's clothes were folded neatly and stacked in precise piles. Josefina looked between them and under them, but saw nothing. Francisca's clothes were loosely folded and piled in the trunk in such a haphazard way that Josefina had to dig through them. She'd find a missing stocking, a broken button, and a hair ribbon that Francisca had loudly complained about losing. But she didn't find Nina. Josefina sat back on her heels and sighed. Where is Nina? She wondered. It was a question she asked herself hundreds of times a day as Christmas came nearer. No matter where she was or what she was doing, Josefina was looking for Nina. She'd started searching early in the morning when the snow on the mountain still had its cool blue glow, and she wouldn't stop until late in the afternoon when sunset made the snow look rosy. Josefina's eyes searched the sala where she knelt there first thing in the morning for prayers with her family. Every time she walked to the stream to fetch water for the day, she looked around, hoping to see Nina hiding behind a rock or nestled at the foot of a tree. She explored every nook and cranny of the storerooms, the stables, and the chicken coops as she did her daily chores. She looked in the kitchen while she made bizcochito. I'll look that one up, make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. Bizcochito. So there are those kind of cookies. Bizcochito. Cookies, and in the courtyard while she waited for bread to bake. She looked in the cradle when she rocked Anna's baby son to sleep. She looked in the weaving room behind the looms, in the stacks of finished blankets, in baskets full of wool waiting to be carded and spun. Still no Nina. In desperation, Josefina even searched the goat's pen. You haven't eaten, Nina, have you? She asked her old enemy, Floresita. The yellow-eyed goat looked at Josefina, blinked once, and turned away. There she is, asking the goats, have you eaten the doll? Josefina tried hard not to be discouraged, even though she soon felt as if she'd searched every inch of the rancho. Then one day, Josefina and her sisters and Tia Dolores were invited to Senora Sanchez's house. Josefina was glad to go. She knew that Clara and Margarita Sanchez used to play dolls together. Maybe that's where Nina was. At least it was a new place to look. Buenos dias, please come in, said Senora Sanchez as she welcomed everyone to her house. Almost all the women and children from the village were there. The women had brought with them scraps of cloth and paper. They were using them to make flowers for ramelettes to decorate the church on Christmas Eve. Tia Dolores had brought some yellow material that was left over from the new dress Josefina had made for herself. And that's what those look like. Senora Sanchez was a stout, good-hearted woman who was well known for being generous and neighborly. She'd been a special friend of Mama's. They used to visit back and forth to share food and news and advice. Senora Sanchez always had time to sit and talk, and yet she seemed always to have something delicious cooking on the hearth, and her house was as neat as a pin. Mama used to say she didn't know how Senora Sanchez did it. But Senora Sanchez's house wasn't neat today. The women were gathering in the kitchen around the bright jumble of colored scraps. Josefina searched the kitchen with her eyes, hoping to see Nina. There was no doll to be seen, but Josefina couldn't help smiling at the pile of finished ramelettes. It looked as if a flower garden were blooming right there in the middle of Senora Sanchez's kitchen. Josefina turned to Tia Dolores. The ramelettes remind me of the flowers Mama planted in our courtyard, she said. It's probably pronounced Ramilletes. It is. So those are pronounced ramilletes. Miss L needs to brush up on her Spanish. Josefina, your mama would be pleased with the way you've cared for the flowers she planted, said Tia Magdalena, who was Josefina's godmother. All the women murmured in agreement. Things grew well for your mama, said Senora Lopez. Of course they did, said Senora Sanchez. And no wonder. She used to say to me, you must treat flowers like people. The women nodded, and Senor Garcia's wife said, well, she certainly treated people kindly. Look how beautifully her daughters are growing. Senor Garcia turned to Tia Dolores. And you've done well to teach the girls to read and write and to encourage them to weave. Tia Dolores smiled. They've worked very hard, she said. Josefina felt a warmth that came from more than the fire and the hot, sweet mint tea Senora Sanchez served. She had known these women all her life, as far back as she could remember. They'd helped her when she was a fat-legged toddler, always underfoot and falling down, just like the toddlers there today. They'd known her when she tagged along watching Clara and Margarita play dolls, back before Nina disappeared. When Mama died, all of these women had lost a dear friend. Josefina knew they'd never forget Mama, any more than she herself would. Look, said Francisca. She held a cloth flower behind one ear. It was made of the yellow material that Tia Dolores had brought. Francisca twitched her skirts and swirled around gracefully as if she were dancing. Everyone laughed. Anna said, the flower looks pretty in your hair, Francisca, but it'll look just as pretty in the church on Christmas Eve. We'll put the ramilletes in the arch over the altar, said Senora Garcia to the girls. I'll put the cloth your mama made on the altar. Didn't she have a fine hand for colcha embroidery, said Tia Magdalena. No village in New Mexico had a lovelier Christmas altar cloth. Senora Sanchez turned to her daughter, Margarita, who was going to be Maria in Las Posadas this year. Sing for us, Margarita, she said. Sing the lullaby we always sing on Christmas Eve. So she's going to be Mary in the Christmas pageant. Josefina held her breath while Margarita sang. Sleep, my beautiful baby, sleep, my grain of gold. And everyone but Josefina joined in. The night is very cold. The night is very cold. This time the lullaby didn't make Josefina cry. Instead, as she listened, Josefina thought, a song like this must go straight up to God like a prayer. With all her heart, Josefina wished she had the courage to be Maria in Las Posadas this Christmas. But with all her heart, she was sure she did not. The December afternoon was short, the weak winter sun slid down behind the mountains early, and it was nearly dusk when Papa came to walk home with Tia Dolores and the sisters. He had been to the church to get the trunk that had the Christmas altar cloth in it. Senora Sanchez beckoned to Josefina. Come with me, she said. I have something for you and your sisters to thank you for the chilies. Josefina followed Senora Sanchez outside. She was very surprised when Senora Sanchez handed her a little cage made out of bent wood. Inside the cage there was the plumpest, prettiest black and white hen Josefina had ever seen. Oh, Senora Sanchez, Josefina exclaimed. Gracias. Senora Sanchez beamed a generous smile. She's a vain little hen, very proud of herself, I'm afraid, she said. But she has reason to be proud. She lays very fine eggs. I thought you and your sisters could raise her chicks to increase your flock. I know you'll take good care of her. Josefina thanked Senora Sanchez again. She held up the cage to look at the hen, who puffed herself up and met Josefina's gaze with her beady black eyes. Then Papa strapped the hen's cage onto the burro next to the trunk from the church. He and Tia Dolores and the sisters began the long walk home. Adios, the woman called out to them. God keep you well. Josefina turned and waved. Adios, she called. It had been a long, full day, and Josefina was tired. As she walked along next to Clara, she said happily, The ramilletes we made will look beautiful in the church, won't they? I suppose so, said Clara rather sourly. Of course, no one will know how to arrange them as nicely as Mamma used to. She sighed. Oh well, at least the altar cloth will look all right. It will be the way it used to be. And there she is, getting her hen. When they were home at the rancho, Papa carried the truck into the kitchen and set it down near the fire. Wait till you see Mamma's altar cloth, Josefina said to Tia Dolores. The birds that Mamma embroidered on it look so real you expect them to sing. Tia Dolores smiled. She knelt next to the trunk. Papa and all the sisters crowded around, peering over her shoulders as she lifted the lid. Tia Dolores lifted the altar cloth out of the trunk, and they all looked at it. For a moment no one said anything. Then Papa pulled his breath in sharp, as if something had hurt him. Without a word he turned and left the room. Josefina was confused. What was this torn, bedraggled cloth in Tia Dolores' hands? This cloth looked like a rag. It was chewed by mice. It smelled of mildew. It was water-stained and dirty. It couldn't be Mamma's beautiful embroidered altar cloth, but it was. "Oh no," said Anna, sounding miserable. "Water from the flood must have rotted the leather of the trunks that mice and dampness got in. Just look at the damage that's been done." "It's ruined," Clara cried out. "It's ruined just like Christmas." She rushed from the room. The door slammed behind her, and the whole room and everyone in it was shaken. It wasn't like Clara to act like that. Her words echoed in Josefina's head. "It's ruined, just like Christmas." The knot inside Josefina tightened again. Just when Josefina had begun to hope that this Christmas might be happy, this had to happen. The beautiful altar cloth Mamma had made so lovingly was destroyed. It hurt Josefina to look at it on Tia Dolores' lap. Tia Dolores unfolded the altar cloth slowly, never minding the dirt and mildew that soiled her skirt. The more she unfolded it, the more damage Josefina saw. Francisca lifted one corner using just the tips of her fingers. "Just look," she said. "It's in shreds." Anna sighed. "I'm glad Mamma's not here to see this," she said. "It would break her heart." Tia Dolores didn't say anything. She examined the cloth carefully, running her hands over it. Then she said, "I think we can repair this." Anna, Francisca, and Josefina looked at each other. "But how?" asked Francisca. "First we'll wash it," said Tia Dolores. "Then we'll iron it. We'll mend the embroidery wherever we can." "What about the embroidery that the mice chewed away?" asked Anna. "We'll replace it with new embroidery," said Tia Dolores. Francisca looked doubtful. "We'll need Clara for that," she said. "Mamma taught us all colcha embroidery, but Clara's the best. She's the only one who's even close to doing colcha as well as Mamma." "Very well," said Tia Dolores. "Josefina, please go to Clara and ask her to come back so that I may speak to her." Clara nodded. Quickly she crossed the courtyard to the room she shared with Francisca and Clara. The door was partly open, and through it Josefina heard the sound of Clara crying. Josefina stood still, not sure what to do. As she hesitated, she looked into the room. It was dark, but Josefina saw Clara open the clothes trunk and take out an old skirt that was neatly folded into a thick bundle. Clara unfolded the skirt. Josefina saw a bit of something pale blue, a flash of green, and there was Nina. Josefina gasped in surprise and bewilderment. Clara had Nina! The doll had been hidden in Clara's trunk all this time. Josefina took one step into the room and stopped short when she saw Clara bury her face in Nina and sob. Clara cried as if her heart were broken, and she held on to Nina as if the doll were her only comfort in the world. Josefina turned away quietly so that Clara wouldn't hear her. When Josefina got back to the kitchen, Anna and Francisca were gone. Tia Dolores was alone, still holding the altar cloth. "Is Clara coming?" asked Tia Dolores. "I don't know," stammered Josefina. Tia Dolores looked confused. She asked, "Didn't you speak to her?" "No," said Josefina. Suddenly she burst out, "Tia Dolores, Clara has Nina. I saw her. The door was open a little, and when I looked in, I saw Clara holding the doll." Josefina spoke as if she could hardly believe what she had seen. "Clara has known where Nina is all along. She's been keeping her for herself." Tia Dolores put the altar cloth down and took both Josefina's hands in her own. "I'm not sure I understand it," she said slowly, "but I think Clara misses your mamma very, very much. Your mamma made Nina, and she made a new dress for her every Christmas. So Nina is a way for Clara to feel close to your mamma. She's a comfort. Clara needs her." "But why did she pretend she didn't know where Nina was?" asked Josefina indignantly. "That wasn't true." "Do you remember the other day when you told me how you're not ready to be Maria in Las Posadas?" Tia Dolores asked. Josefina nodded. "Well, Clara's not ready to give you Nina. That's why she's hiding her," said Tia Dolores. She looked at Josefina's long face and tried to cheer her. "At least we know that Nina isn't lost. She's safe. That's good, isn't it?" "I guess so," Josefina admitted grudgingly. "But when will Clara give her to me? Will Nina ever be mine?" Tia Dolores sighed. "I don't know," she said. "No one knows, probably not even Clara. It may take a long time." She put Josefina's hands aside and picked up the altar cloth again. "Just as it'll take time to repair this altar cloth, but we'll do it. The sooner we begin, the better." Tia Dolores tried to tease a smile out of Josefina. "What do I always say?" she asked. Josephina had to smile just a little bit in spite of Clara, in spite of Nina, and in spite of herself. You always say the saints cry over lost time. Precisely, said Tia Dolores briskly. We'll start tomorrow. And that will be when we get our next chapter, won't it? Unless I give you another one early. But do you think that Clara should be hiding Nina? Or do you think she should give Nina to Josefina? So that's something to think about. So next time I see you, it will be for chapter 3 of Josefina's Surprise, the Silver Thimble.